Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Zeff Reeves, who's the MD of Tesoro Resources, who are an Australian public listed company with an exploration stage gold asset in Chile, and are in the process of carrying out a significant drilling program at its flagship Zorro Project to establish and to identify and establish targets. Zeff is a geologist with an executive with over 20 years experience in the resources sector, with a significant management and operational experience in the gold and base metals sectors within Australia and overseas. And he's going to tell us, he's going to talk about the company and their flagship project. He's also going to be speaking at the upcoming Mines and Money event in London at the end of November. So to be sure to obviously reach out to him there in person if you've got any further questions. So that's welcome, Zeff, to the podcast. How you doing, Zeff?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Here in the UK, and you in Perth. So we're recording this on a Wednesday, so it's a hump day. So
yeah,
all good.
That's right.
So yeah. Just wondering if you can just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, about your career, about your background, and then obviously we can talk more about Tesoro Resources in more detail.
Yeah, sure, Rob. Yeah, I'm obviously a geologist by background. I've also have a business degree, an MBA, but look, I spent probably a lion's share of the first 10 odd years of my career working in underground mines here in Western Australia, predominantly gold and nickel mines. And as my career progressed, I sort of ended up working in projects right through from greenfields exploration into feasibility, getting projects financed, constructed, and also producing. But it was probably, I found myself in South America nearly 15, 20 odd years ago now with a junior explorer, initially in Brazil. And with that junior explorer, we did something with them, not dissimilar to what we've done with Tesoro, in having a look at the geology a little bit differently in a region that wasn't necessarily famous as a gold district. I identified a new style of mineralisation and delineated that and sold that project to a major gold producer. So through that experience in Brazil, we established another company which had an operating gold mine in Goiás state in Brazil, and I also found myself in Chile probably around about 15 years ago, and really spent a lion's share of my career operating in Chile on mining projects at various different stages, right through from greenfields through to production, and have done a lot of work with our co-founder and close colleague of mine, Sergio Uribe, who's operates at the Tesoro business in country in Chile. So yeah, I've had a broad experience. I've also, I guess, my family have, through my father, have had interest in electrical engineering, contracting businesses here in Western Australia, building mines, oil and gas facilities, heavy industrial facilities, and that. So I've also been in and out of that business for a fair part of my career. So I've got a very broad business background and commercial background as well, and obviously that's bolstered with the MBA. So I've had a fairly varied experiences through my career, probably compared to most geologists.
Yeah. Would you say, obviously you just mentioned that you've been in other industries and your obviously family been in other industries. Have you taken some of the things that you've learned in other industries and applied it into the mining industry? And it may be something that's not necessarily in the mining industry, but you've taken it from engineering from other industries that you worked in?
Look, absolutely, particularly when as a mining project moves through, I guess, past feasibility into that development and construction phase. That business that I've been in and out of here is basically constructs mines and oil and gas facilities. So it gives you quite a good grounding on the mechanics of how those contracts operate and the large logistical efforts, if you like, to get a complex multidisciplined group of people together to build a mine and a processing plants and all of those sorts of things. So that's really been valuable experience, and obviously having a lot more experienced people around is always good to leverage off that knowledge and try to understand as much as possible. So it certainly has offered a good breadth of experience that I've been able to use, not only in the mining industry, but just in general when looking at contracts or any of the legal documents that you seem to get bombarded with nowadays, operating exploration and development company.
Wondering if you can just tell us a little bit more about Tesoro Gold.
Yeah, so Tesoro was founded in 2017 by myself and Sergio Uribe in Chile, and one of our other non-executive directors, Jeff McNamara. So Jeff and I go back 20 odd years or 25 years of knowing each other. We used to work in a deep underground gold mine here in Western Australia, Bounty Gold Mine, which is now a large lithium project. But back in those days, we didn't like the pegmatites. They used to stope out the gold ore body. But that was a deep underground mine, and Jeff and I have remained in contact ever since. And I was obviously working in Chile with Sergio on various things, and we came across we started to look at the geology of Chile a little bit differently. I think geologists have got a habit of trying to classify and pigeonhole deposits and mineral systems as their porphyry or their epithermal or whatever. And I guess myself and a couple of other guys that have really been integral in the delineation discovery of Zorro, I guess we think about things a little bit differently and don't necessarily have tunnel vision on what can and cannot exist in a certain geological area. So we had to look at Chile a little bit differently, and we identified there's some potential for some different styles of mineralisation in parts of the coastal belt. We identified this tract of ground, which is up in the Atacama Desert, right on the coast, about 900 kilometres north of Santiago. And Sergio and I worked on the underlying owner, the original owner of those concessions for about 3 years before we actually got the deal done. And we got a deal done in 2017. And myself and Jeff and Serge funded all of that work and some of the initial drilling that we did when we got our hands on it. And the deal was done on an initial 1,500 hectares of concessions. Today, Tesoro is in control of over 600 square kilometres of concessions in what we think is a major new gold district in Chile. So Tesoro was run as a private company from getting that initial concession holding back in 2017, and we listed the company on the ASX via reverse takeover of a listed shell in February 2020. So since then, we've now drilled in excess of 105,000 metres of drilling into the project. We've defined a significant gold resource of over 1.1 million ounces, which continues to grow, and we think we've got our hands on a very attractive gold project.
Tesoro's Zorro Gold Project is obviously a unique style of deposit in Chile. How significant is it, and how did you sort of come across this resource?
Yeah, look, as I sort of intimated in what I've just said, but I think one of the key elements is to be very open-minded and let the geologists run amok, so to speak. Let them come up with crazy ideas and work through each of those individually, and provide its evidence based on the geological observations that we're seeing. And we're able to do that in, I guess, identifying large tracts of new ground that were previously overlooked for various reasons, and mainly because in Chile we see defined mineral belts, which are either defined as copper porphyry belts or epithermal gold belts or IOCG style copper gold belts. And certainly no one was looking in what we now call the Zorro Gold belt for gold deposits. And the style of deposit that we believe it is an intrusive related gold system. It's very typical or similar to the Tintina province in North America. The rocks are a different age to most other mineral deposits in Chile. There's no base metals at all associated with the gold, and very low silver. So it's quite unusual, and it's given us obviously a massive commercial advantage in going to look for these things, because no one else is looking for them, and we believe that at this stage we're the ones who have got the key to the treasure box, so to speak, on what characteristics are required from a regional perspective down to the deposit scale and what's required to form these deposits in Chile. So putting all that together, letting the geos loose, so to speak, has been a key part of it. And we're blessed at El Zorro with having a project where all the rocks stick out of the ground, so we're able to get our guys on the ground there. They can look at the geology, and we can start to build up that that evidence of mineralization and prospectivity based off direct geological observations, which has been a huge benefit. So and that's resulted in us going from that original little 1,500 hectare bunch of concessions that we did the original deal on, to us realizing that this is potentially a major district scale gold new gold system in Chile that's got significant potential to host multiple million-ounce plus gold deposits.
What's the key success to Tesoro, which has led with its work at El Zorro, and delineating a million-plus ounce resource in a relatively short period of time?
Yeah, a number of things obviously that go into being successful. One's access to capital. We've always, had a very supportive shareholder base that have been able to fund the activities and believe in what the company is doing, and being able to execute the work that we've set out to do without and always achieving those milestones. And the other part of it, probably more from a technical perspective, is being on the ground early with a good team of people. And as I said, not having any barriers up in terms of technically what is and isn't achievable. So really letting our technical guys, brainstorm different ideas, being able to drill diamond core early, I think, is critically important. And to date, we've actually only drilled diamond core in this project, but that's given us a massive leg up I guess the knowledge curve in understanding what controls mineralization at El Zorro, and able to delineate that very quickly. And also just to pull in, some good consultants and other people, not only to mentor and help our technical team, but also to mentor and help myself and our board understand what's going on and what the true potential there is, and not being afraid to test all those ideas, through the progression of the project. And look, we've drilled some pretty ambitious drill holes, and some of them haven't always worked, but it's also given us sometimes the ones that don't work are perhaps the most important, because they sort of help you unravel that puzzle much much faster.
How do you go about identifying new targets at El Zorro? And what is your success rate when drilling them?
Yeah, so as I said before, the benefit of El Zorro is we've got a huge amount of surface geology that our guys can actually get on the ground and observe and directly sample. So it's really back to first principle geological work. It's mapping and good structural mapping, good lithological mapping, identifying what the prospective host rocks are. We've got Tenera, which is the deposit which hosts over 1.1 million ounces at the moment. That's sitting in the middle of it. We use that as a proxy to build that exploration model out. Our guys go off and map and identify prospective areas, and are able to directly sample those rocks and assess them for potential for gold mineralization. So, that's a very key point of difference, I think, in comparing us to other exploration companies, particularly those in Australia, whereby companies are looking at drilling soil anomalies or geophysical anomalies and highly conceptual targets. We're actually trying to find outcropping ore deposits that are sticking out of the ground, and so far we've identified over 10 highly prospective targets. We've drilled 3 of them. They've all had positive drill results. They all require more drilling. So at the moment, in terms of drill success, based off that targeting, it's 100% success rate. But some of the new targets that we're finding from that basic work is substantially larger than what Tenera is as well. And, we think that this project really has the potential to host multiple, 1 million ounce gold deposits.
Being on the coast and close to the airport, El Zorro has an advantage with that location for obviously developing a mine. But isn't water and power for these projects new or an issue to Chile?
Yeah, look, in Chile, it certainly is a challenge in accessing water and power. Both are scarce, and there's some pretty stringent restrictions on the use of groundwater and so on. But this project is, located in. I've never worked on a project that's located so well, supporting infrastructure and the ability to get power and water, and as well as workforce and everything. So we're only 13 kilometres from the coast, and we intend on using seawater for processing. All of our met work to date's been done using seawater with very good results. So we're up to 94.5% recovery at quite a coarse grind size in the met. And in terms of power, we've got multiple power options. There's actually a grid line only 20 kilometres away, which has got more than enough capacity to run a gold mine. There's a port 55 kilometres away, and there's actually a gas importation hub being built. It's just been permitted, and that's being built in the next year or two. And the company that actually owns that is also rolling out power solutions for mine sites and remote townships in the region with gas-fired power stations. So that's other options that we're looking at for power. So, it really is an advantageous location where we are. It's an hour's flight north of Santiago and 45 minutes in the car to get to the site. So we're not at altitude. We don't have the restrictions around working at altitude. We don't have any restrictions on the groundwater issues because we've got the access to the seawater, and it's providing a lot of work for our team to actually assess what is the best option, because there's so many options, rather than being funneled down a particular pathway because it's the only option. So that infrastructure advantage is certainly going to be very beneficial in developing a gold mine at El Zorro.
What about the political environment in Chile at the moment? And does it affect you as a company?
Yeah, there's been no direct impact on us in terms of the political environment in Chile. So Chile's has been in the media for a couple of main things. One is the election of a new president, which is more of a left-leaning but still centre-left type political party, with some potential changes around some of the tax on, particularly on large copper mines, but they're only very small incremental tax increases that are actually on the table now. And just for context, if those tax increases were approved, it would still be a lower tax burden for a mining project in Chile than it would be for the same project operating in Australia. And the other major political thing that's been happening in Chile is a movement to change the Chilean constitution. So the existing constitution is a Pinochet-era constitution, but it's undergone nearly 100 different amendments to kind of modernise it. But there's a general consensus, I think, amongst a majority of the population to have that constitution structurally changed to align it more, probably a lot more to what an Australian or a UK style constitution is, where there's clear separation between the judicial system and the political system and things like that. So they recently just had a constitutional congress, which was tasked with writing up a proposal for a new constitution, and Chile just recently had a plebiscite to vote for that new constitution. Unfortunately, that constitutional committee had some fairly radical ideas which weren't endorsed by the population, and it was not approved. So the existing constitution stays in place for now. Chile are still working through additional amendments to that. I think that's where we'll see that land, is that the existing constitution will be amended some more to modernise it. So in terms of what that means for mining projects, foreign investment and so on, it's pretty well business as usual. And there's been some recent initiatives by the Chilean government to really reinvigorate foreign investment into Chile. And it's important to note that it's not only the mining industry that attracts foreign investment in Chile. Chile's a major agricultural products exporter of produce, fruit, nuts, and avocados, things like that, as well as the mining industry. And a lot of that is due to foreign investment. And there is a reason why Santiago is known as the Zurich of South America, because it's where all the large international foreign banks have set up shop for operating in South America. So look, as far as we see, Chile's a great place to operate, certainly well and truly open for business, and we don't perceive any direct impacts on any of the political things going on anything that Tesoro does.
Obviously, talking about Chile and the rich history of mining within the country, what things have you sort of learned or come across or discovered from operating in the country that may be different from some of the other South American countries that you've worked in, and maybe even Australia?
Yeah, look, Chile is actually very similar to Australia in terms of its, I guess, operating capabilities within the country. So that long history of mining and has certainly equipped the country well with a very well trained and equipped workforce. So all the professionals that you would need to build and run mines, engineers, geologists, surveyors, and metallurgists, and so on, are all available in Chile, as well as operators for machinery operation and so on. One thing the Chileans are really good at is mining very big open pit operations. And what we found, I guess, over my years operating in Chile, is there's probably a small gap or a gap in the market, if you like, between, say, the artisanal miners in Chile, sort of the one-man bands mining a small quartz vein somewhere, and the large open pit copper miners. There's a gap in the middle there of sort of these mid-size open pit and underground mines, such as what our Zorro's looking like it's going to be. So there's some challenges there, but in saying that, all those skills are there. They just need to be refined to operate at the scale that, you know, might be useful for Tesoro. But yeah, that long, rich history of mining is certainly highly beneficial. You know, all the service providers are there. The third party service providers, if you like, they're all familiar with engaging with mining companies and operating in with mining companies. The environmental permitting process is very straightforward to be able to, and you know, there's consultants available that specifically work on mining projects. So it's a really well-equipped country for not only finding ore deposits, but developing them and operating them as well.
I've got a couple more questions. Just wondering, just tell us a little bit about the management team.
Yeah, so we've got our board consists of myself as MD, Jeff McNamara. So Jeff's a geo, as I mentioned, we go back a long time. And we've also got an executive director, Linton Putland. He's a mining engineer, and he's running all of our engineering studies and all of our permitting work and so on to get a mine permitted at our Zorro. Linton's got a lot of experience, particularly in the gold sector, building, developing and running mines. Another non-exec director that we have is Christy Young. Christy's also a mining engineer, but she's got a very strong background in ESG and sustainable mining practices. And she really brings a lot of that experience and ideas to our board. And that's important in Chile, you know, ultimately to have complete stakeholder success in getting a mine permitted in Chile, you need to be able to present a sustainable and environmentally responsible mining project to get it permitted. And that includes, you know, aspects of renewable power and recycling of water and all of those types of things. And we've already got programs in place to manage a lot of our flora and fauna issues that we come across when we're exploring, which includes identification of vulnerable species and transplanting those or putting them in nurseries for future planting and rehabilitation and those sorts of things. So Christy's been great in being able to offer her expertise in that side of things. And John Toll's our chairman. So John's got a strong background in corporate finance. He's actually a principal of our corporate advisory group here called Azure Capital. They do a lot of work with sort of in the mid-tier space, mergers and acquisitions and things like that. And then in country, we have a very strong team. We've got Sergio Uribe, he's our general manager. So Sergio and I have gone back, 15 odd years doing various things in Chile. So he runs the day-to-day business there. We've got our chief geologist in country, a guy called Ruben Cajuana. So he's our longest employee for Tesoro in country. So he's been with us since we started really back in 2017. He's been integral part of discovering El Zorro and delineating the gold resource at Tenera. And he's getting very excited about some of the targets that he's finding with his team on the ground at the moment. We've also got a lady called Tatiana Garcia who looks after all of our environmental and permitting work in country. So Tatiana is actually ex-government, and she has written a lot of the I guess, the process and rules and regulations around getting a mining project permitted. She was on the other side of the fence. We've managed to grab her, and she's working with all of our external stakeholders and environmental consultants and the like to get our Zorro permitted. So we've got a very strong team. We're well equipped to move the project through to its next phase.
And lastly, just wonder what the outlook is for the next sort of six to 9 months to sort of mid next year.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work going on. Obviously, some of it's going to be contingent on what our market conditions are like. Obviously, we're across the board at the moment. I think we chatted before we went live around what how the world's looking at the moment. So we'll see how that pans out over the next 6 to 12 months. But certainly for us, we've got a couple of, the main 2 milestones that we'll have coming up is an updated resource estimate, which we hope to have towards the end of this year. And that'll feed into a scoping study and provide some economics around what a gold project will look like at our Zorro, and that'll provide the impetus for us to move through to feasibility, which will kick off next year. And as usual with these companies, we're a bit like ducks. We look pretty cruisy on the surface, but there's a lot of paddling going on under the water, and so there's lots of activity on site. I've just come back from Chile. We've got consultants there doing environmental baseline studies. We've got flora specialists transplanting vulnerable cactuses, and got teams of geologists running around finding new targets, and we're delineating all of that and drilling some of our new targets, which we're pretty excited about as well. So there's plenty of work going on the ground, and it's going to be quite an exciting 6 to 12 months for us.
Yeah, sounds exciting. And obviously good luck for the next 6 to 12 months and obviously the future. Looks like obviously you've got a strong management team there. You're experienced in Chile as well. So all the best for the coming months and into 2023. If our audience wants to reach out to you, I wonder how they can go about doing that. Are you across any social media platforms? Obviously, as I mentioned, you're going to be at the Mines and Money show in London at the end of November. So obviously people can come and obviously meet you in person if they've got any questions. But for those that are listening, how can they get in contact with you, or if they want to find out more information?
Yeah, sure. So Tesoro is on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. So they're probably the 2 go-tos for getting in contact. We're pretty sharp on all of that stuff and getting back to people. So alternatively, go to our website, tesorogold.com.au, and go to our announcements platform, and there's some information there on how to contact us as well.
Yeah, we can include all those in the show notes accompanying this. So yeah, they can have easy access to get in contact with you, and you never know, they might even meet you at the Mines and Money show. So
yeah, there's some potential.
Yeah, so all the best. Thank you for your time. Those that are listening, appreciate your continued support. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Listening to obviously what Tesoro Gold are doing in Chile. Chile, obviously in South America, is obviously strong and rich in mining, as we've obviously spoken about. So please share this episode amongst others in the industry. And if you're going to the Mines and Money show, obviously catch up with Zeff when you're there. So appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.